Now, there is a current situation, a pattern or wave, if you like, that is happening in Kenya today. Now, let's backtrack this a little bit to June last year, when the Gen Z-led protests caused some uproar and reactions globally. The agitation: reject the Finance Bill 2024, which President William Ruto did do. We also saw a historic, happening or event at the Kenya's parliament. Now, within that moment, we had lives that were lost. People still say, remember their names. But not only were lives lost or property destroyed, we had Kenyans who went missing. Until today, we're still asking where they are. Nobody's coming forth to take responsibility, not even the institutions that we hoped or anticipate will give us answers. President William Ruto, however, in his last address of 2024, acknowledged that there are certain forces that are causing this ill or menace. Kenyans are still tasking him to take action. Human rights voices, civil society voices, political analysts, and now it's going even broader to the world. Is it a state in action? And even more, the words of Justin Muturi still causing another slight new sense of reaction. I want to appreciate my guests who are very, very integral in this conversation, because they say, ask them the questions, perhaps they could help us get the answers. We are so privileged to have Amnesty here in the studio with us, and not just Amnesty. If I say Amnesty International, this is Roland Ebole, who is a regional researcher, East Africa, Amnesty International. We are depending on you to give us proper data, research, as far as what is going on in the region is concerned. It's so good to have you tonight on KTN.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for choosing us tonight. I also want to appreciate Kathy Rungu, who is a political analyst. It is so good to see you again, Kathy. We met before in many other platforms for political conversations.
Yes.
And here we are again. Karibu.
Yes, good evening, and how are you? Happy New Year.
Is
Great
it happy?
to be here. It doesn't look like a happy one. We've not started on a very good note, but we hope things will get better. We just pray for the best. I mean, this is our country.
Right.
We have got no other country. This is our home.
No, it's interesting. I want to appreciate Alenga Torres-Start, who is joining us virtually. He's a governance and political analyst, and even as he joins us, and also it's really good to see you, Alenga. First, let me just say thank you for choosing to be here. You had other things, really, that you'd be attending to, but you've chosen the viewer tonight. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
I am keeping attentive. How are you?
Sure. Happy New Year, and say my greetings to my brother and sister in the studio.
I believe that I've received that, and I will be coming to you shortly because we want to see which trajectory we're picking as a country and as far as governance is concerned through your lenses. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you for being here. Now, before I bring in the bites that will bring us up to speed and the viewer, I want to encourage you who's watching back at home that this is not about the panelists, it's about you. Families that are watching this evening, talk to me and my team at KTN News KE on X. We're also on YouTube, we're streaming on Facebook, and we'll be making use of that comment section as we also then indulge and engage with our guests. Kathy, let me start with you. You said that this is our country, and what better thing to do but to make it a better place for generations to come. But you've heard how different leaders have been speaking on this abduction matter. It seems to have caused some sort of split now at this point in time. It continues to widen that split. And you've had some saying, if you don't want to be in this country, you can as well leave. Why are you still here? Some are saying, well, you should train your children to be a bit disciplined and respect their elders and their leaders. I do not know where you stand when you said this is our country.
I think there is... let's treat this matter, abduction, with the seriousness it deserves. This is a grave issue. It affects all of us. It can affect you. Whatever has happened to Maria, what happened to the young people, our Gen Zs, what has happened to the families who have their loved ones, who still cannot be accounted for, can happen to anyone. And as a mother, as a leader, and as a woman, I am not one of those people who will sit pretty and say that things are okay. And we cannot afford to have this country ran the same way. It cannot be business as usual. So from where I sit, I condemn the abductions. It is actually unfortunate that up to now the police, you know, the IG of police said that the police are not involved in the abductions. The president, who is the leader of government, has also come out to tell us that his government has got nothing to do with it.
But he did acknowledge.
But at the same time, we have members of his government who are going around telling us that we need to talk to our children. Right. You know, I've been thinking about this issue of talking to our children as a mother. At the age of 24 years, because most of these young men who were abducted the other day, I'm talking about young men like Billy Mwangi and the Kibets. They are barely in their, say, between 23 and 25. At the age of 23, 25, I was just finishing university. So clearly, I was not under the control of my parents per se, because I was out there. I had started integrating with the community and with the society. Most likely, I was also working. So, I mean, you cannot blame the parents for whether it is the wrongdoings, as some of the politicians are calling it. You cannot blame the parents. I think, yes, we need to check some of the things that the leaders have mentioned, like the caricature and the cartoons and everything else that is on social media. But you cannot afford to blame us mothers and fathers of those children. All right. The other thing, when you tell us that if you are not comfortable with Kenya, we move to another country, where do you want us to go? We have got no other country to go to. This is our home. And I think it is time we learned how to live with each other, because we are all Kenyans. This is our home, and we are not leaving Kenya. We need to make Kenya a better place for all of us to live in.
Very strong preliminary sentiments there, but I'll come back to you, because someone would ask, just because they're saying take care of the seemingly moral decay, does it mean they're admitting that perhaps the abductions that we do not know who is doing so far are actually, or is actually punishment for a certain behavior? I'll come back to Kathy for that. But let me hear from Roland Ebole, because Amnesty Kenya, in fact, even today there was a presser. I think you were there with Maria. And we've also seen you very vocal when we had the Kiza Besije matter, the Turkish issue, coming up. So you've really vocal and at the center of this. Let's start with, what numbers do you have? Because as far as I'm concerned, different groups, including human rights groups have said what is reported cannot be even half of the number of citizens that are missing to this point. Could you bring us up to speed? Perhaps that would be a good place to start from.
Thank you so much. And you are right in terms of what is reported is just maybe a tip of the iceberg. And what is reported, you see the most prominent of persons. In fact, I saw a tweet, I think it was from Dr. Miguna saying that, the amnesties, the Human Rights Watch need to also go out and defend, the least known persons, because, Maria, Sarungi is a high profile person. And, it got me thinking in terms of, how deep is this issue?
Yes.
Who are those people who are not maybe prominent on social media and somehow are critics of the state at different other levels and have gone missing, but for some reasons, their names have not really come up, for others to campaign for their release on social media. Last year, sometimes in July, you remember the incident of 36 Ugandan, this Forum for Democracy and Change. This is a Ugandan opposition party that were actually arrested in Kisumu. They were detained in Kisumu for a night and extradited, taken back to Uganda without the government following the procedure for extradition, whereby it's a diplomatic process where the other state requests diplomatically Kenya to actually extradite persons that may be wanted in their, in their country to face, whether it's criminal charges or for whatever reasons. And that process has to be taken to our courts here, where the courts have to find a reason to actually get these people extradited. Those 36 who are taken, they're now facing, crimes in relations to, being in Kenya to train for terrorism.
Is it?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. So they're actually facing charges. You all remember the abduction of the 7 Turkish citizens, and that was, I think, sometimes in October. 4 of them who were extradited to Turkey, and we know, what the certain CS, as Dr. Singo has mentioned or said about the extradition. Yet the procedure was not followed. We know sometimes in November, that is 16th of November. We saw a case of Kizza Besigye, a leading opposition leader in Uganda, who again was abducted in a hotel in Kenya. And for hours, the driver sat waiting for Kizza Besigye to come back, and take him wherever he was, supposed to take him. He did not. And Kizza Besigye resurfaced on 20th November, 4 days later, presented in a military court-martial in Uganda, charged with offenses in relation to, to military offenses. And again, now we are seeing what the incident of Maria. And first of all, in international law, there is no crime, called abductions.
All right.
But abduction is an element of enforced disappearance. And this is what we are speaking against, because enforced disappearance is where, a state or armed groups would actually take somebody arbitrarily or through abductions, and the state will refuse to disclose whether they're actually holding them, where they're holding them, or holding them for a long period of time without even taking them through trial. So it is a worrying trend that we are seeing in this country.
Now, it's good to pick clarity because this is such a sensitive matter. Number one, you have just said in your last remarks that the state could refuse to declare where they're holding these people.
Yes.
So you are saying it's possible, but they could refuse.
Yes.
All right. Also, you have said, because I want to hear from Alenga shortly, you also said that the 36 Ugandan nationals are facing charges of probably training for terrorism in Kenya.
Yes.
Very interesting. Let me just hear from Alenga. Alenga, thank you so much for joining us. And you've just heard the preliminaries right here in studio. First, being a governance expert, and we're looking at a whole region here. Now you're seeing a bit of brushing shoulders with Tanzania nationals, Uganda nationals, and I'm very, very particular on the 36 who are facing charges for purportedly training for terrorism in Kenya. Based on what we're being told tonight, what do you make of that? And what would be your opening remarks to the situation today?
Thank you very much, Anki, once again for welcoming me on your show all the way. And I'd like to say there are certain things that come to the fore. And one of them is we are in a region that has faced a decline in democracy for a couple of decades. Interesting that Kenya has brought at a central point of being an enabler of the decline of democracy. That is a shameful crown that we have deliberately decided to wear. And as a people then speak to our nation down and recontemplate to throw outside there of called Kenya. As it were, issues have arisen about resulting from the abduction of young people and citizens of this country, and now people from other East African nations and even from Europe. They found a home here, as well as themselves have not found a home here. Precarious situation where we not really we cannot really protect the image of the country as the political class would want us to do. The political class is messing with the image day-to-day basis, and then now they bring and put the responsibility there. That image cannot be possible, that our politicians behave the way they want.
Right.
We have characters like Farah Maalim speaking the
all right.
Other leaders like
Alenga, I
asking us to leave
apologize.
the country.
I apologize greatly, but we want to have you part of this conversation with the much clarity, as clear as possible. So perhaps we'll just give you a bit of time, and once we rectify the small hitch, we'll go back to you. And you've just said something very important. He's mentioned what I asked you about what the leaders are doing, and people now are questioning the position of the NCIC. And I want to hear from you, Kathy, because every freedom has a responsibility, is it? And so there is the far you can go, right, of expression and whichever freedom that we have. And we have a beautiful constitution, no doubt. But where do you think we draw the line? Because now there's a lot of blame game and very few answers. You did this, you need to stop this. And nobody's actually saying we know. Who is doing this, and this is months later. We do know that this enforced or forced disappearances started all the way in 1940s, 1950s in those regimes.
Oh, correct. So, number one of the things that we need to appreciate, and especially ourselves here in this during this conversation, is that the issues of intimidation, abduction, and harassment did not just start now. And I'm saying this as a woman. I'm saying this as someone who contested for a parliamentary seat against a very powerful individual who used the police to intimidate me, at one point to arrest me. All right? So I have had that experience firsthand. In fact, when the individual became very popular, very powerful, he followed me up to my house. It is a culture. It is something that has been done before, and perhaps the people who are doing it now are just perfecting it. Because powerful individuals who use the police, powerful individuals who use gangs to harass people they do not agree with. And we must call it for what it is. Because right now the president has said his government has got nothing to do with it. So if it is not the government that is doing it, and it is not the police, then there must be some very powerful people somewhere who are doing this. Then we need to be told who are those people. We start from there.
All right.
Now, whether someone has said something or done something that has angered you or angered someone who is politically very powerful, isn't it right to, have them face the law, either for defamation, or for whatever crime that they may have committed? Abducting someone, making them disappear, or even killing them, because we have also experienced killings in this country, is not the right thing to do. It's not the right thing to do. And then let's also remember that we are dealing with a public that is very woke. I think what happened after the Gen Z protests, they realized they didn't achieve what they were agitating for through the protest, and they went back home, and now they decided they are taking the war to social media, because I think that is what the young people are doing. Isn't it easier, isn't it better for us to listen to the young people? Because there's something they are saying. It is important that we listen to them.
There is something that the young people are saying, and there is something that you are saying on social media. Trust me, we are going to be sampling your feedback shortly, so keep sending in your thoughts and your comments on YouTube and our social media platforms. We had cut Alenga short. I'm told we have him now, and we really apologize for that. But you had just left it at a point where you are calling out or bringing out the reality of certain leaders in very critical positions speaking in a way that might not really unite Kenyans. I might want you to pick it up from there, Alenga. Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you very much, Anki, and sorry for the technical hitch that we had. This is the point I was driving home, that we cannot have the luxury of leaders speaking the way they want, and then now when young people and generally all Kenyans question the state of the nation, we start blaming the parents of the Kenyan children. It cannot be that governance, an issue of governance, is now reduced to parenting. Parenting is so different from governance. So there are things that Kenyans are asking that their nation should be driven in a particular direction. And those are valid questions that we have. So it cannot be that the leaders at one point, they are on the podium, hurling insults at one another. You know, they have now reached a point where they're even insulting the public. You have heard what the intervals some leader has just said the other day. And then now they put the burden of Kenyans. It's like they're asking Kenyans to technically bear with them because they have reached a place where they cannot redeem themselves. So it is us who are now tasked with the responsibility to make Kenya look better. Frankly, study lose it in discussion. There's some issue that everybody kept saying.
Right.
Kenya is.
All right. Again, we apologize, but we will go. We will walk this journey with you. Aluta continua. We're not, even the panelists in studio are saying we will not let go of you, Alenga. We'll keep rectifying what we have to rectify. I want to hear from you,
Doris,
Roland.
I think, kindly allow me to respond to the issue of NCIC because I had allowed my colleague to weigh in.
Yes, Kathy.
NCIC has never summoned any high-profile individual for either incitement or all these things that are being said by our politicians as far as abduction is concerned. They have not summoned any of those. Why haven't they summoned anyone? Number two, sometime last year, I remember there's an active citizen who wrote to NCIC asking them to crack their whip and summon some people who were very divisive. They did not. The best I've seen of some of the senior members of NCIC do is actually take political stand openly. And that is a problem.
Names?
We won't mention the names here.
Because you're saying that they have taken
yes,
stands.
it is true.
Publicly? Because you have to substantiate a very critical institution.
One of them, let me put it this way.
Yes.
We know clearly that the impeached deputy president, the former deputy president Rigathi Gachagua, has weighed in very strongly on this matter. And I agree with him. He said that we need to form a commission of inquiry.
Okay.
That is one of the things he said, I think, about 7 days ago. But then we need to investigate backwards. We are not starting with the abductions that are happening now.
Okay.
Remember, during the Maandamano ya Baba, we also saw him take to the podium and say, tutawashika, tutawaweka ndani. All those things that he was saying then. But most importantly, since he seems to know quite a bit as far as some of those things are concerned, because he told us that he knows where those people are being held. He said he even knows the name of the officer who is holding these young people. I'm sure you saw that. Now, I saw him with the vice chair of NCIC.
You saw the former deputy president?
With the vice chair of NCIC.
All right.
Madam Wambui Nyoto.
Okay.
So they need to give us, I think there's something that we can learn from those trends. I hope that people are not trying to play politics with very, very serious, very grave matters while kids are still missing. I'm asking myself, and I've been asking this question, we still know that some families have not seen their kids. They don't know where their kids are. It could be that they are held in those places that we are being told by the former deputy president. Yeah, maybe that is where they are being held.
Let me hear from Roland, because Roland, first, you're hearing what Kathy has said, which of course was said in public.
Yes.
The former deputy president said he knows. He even said there's one who's a cousin to someone very prominent. If you put their pictures together, they would look alike. Yeah. Then the questions would be, with such kind of information, do you feel, or have you in your observation seen any sort of action, even in your institution, of attempts to investigate what exactly is going on, perhaps that we do not know of?
I think everything looks like a sham, and I think Larry Mado, our very own, like presented this in a very, very beautiful, not even beautiful, in a very ugly way. Mm-hmm. When days later, after an abduction, went to the place where an individual was taken, and no one from the authorities, investigative authorities, had been there to even question. Yesterday, former Attorney General, now Cabinet Secretary in this government, complained about his own son being abducted when he was a sitting AG, a member of the National Security Council. You can imagine how deep this is.
That was last year, I believe, just
yes, that was last year, the son. But as in complaining that, up to now, there has not been a conclusion or investigations that have been concluded to the case. Imagine, this is actually a member of the cabinet speaking like this. So how would you imagine a mother, a local person, what we normally say mwananchi wa kawaida, whose son has gone through a similar ordeal, would actually, in what state do they even, as in are they even in to get their investigations concluded? And then it brings us back to the question of between 25th June to the recent event. It's about 90 that we know of that are recorded by the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, by the Law Society of Kenya, by Amnesty Kenya, by organizations that have been documenting this. Out of these 90, we have 29 that had not been released as per last week. So maybe, subtract 6, you should be having 20-something that have not been released, or people do not know their whereabouts. Out of the 7 that have been abducted in the recent few weeks in December, 1 is still missing. So asking, where is this person? But again, on this 90, the state has not come out openly and said, out of this 90, we have done our investigation, and this is what we are presenting to the public. We've been able to uncover that out of the 90, 60 cases are cases whereby these persons were taken to house A, B, C, D. We have identified, the officers in charge, or the officers concerned, or the persons concerned. Some of these were actually government officers. Some of these were not. Some of these were actually just criminal elements. Where is that report? Where is that disclosure? What should bring back confidence to the Kenyan people that really, when the president says that there is no abduction happening in Kenya, something is being done to stop it, something is being done to investigate it, something is being done to bring accountability, something is being done to bring justice. That is where we are missing the point. If the state did that, then perhaps we'd look back and say, something is being done. But one thing that I'd say very fast, now we are getting into a situation whereby our countries, our leaders are learning bad manners from each other. Abductions used to be a thing in the recent past, happening in Uganda en masse, happening in Tanzania en masse. We are seeing it in Kenya, but now in a new model whereby it is transnational repression, whereby Kenya, which used to be a safe haven, is actually facilitating, the extradition, abduction, and taking people to the countries. It is such a sad and worrying time that we all need to be worried and really call for an end to some of these practices.
And of course, just asking, when will it end? Will it come to an end? I'm still with you, Roland, because as we're speaking, top leadership in matter security, I'm talking about DCI's Amin and IG Douglas Kanja, have for the 3rd time failed to appear before the courts, now forcing the judge to demand that they appear in person, and now this time produce, and I'm talking about still missing Justus Mutumwa, Martin Mwau, and Karani Mwema. So I want to come back to that because your very own Irungu, is it Houghton, Section Director, Amnesty International, was speaking in one of the international broadcasting television today, and he said, because I'm yet to hear from the Kenyans who have signed the petition, that Kenyans have opted to sign a petition asking the International Criminal Court to investigate the abductions in Kenya. Now, if you look at that, and I want to hear from you, first, if you could first confirm that this is going on, that there's a petition being signed, and there's more confidence then in the ICC to come and investigate abductions in Kenya, like our judiciary has failed?
One thing I know is that there has been an application to actually have, this process begin. Because enforced disappearance, as I said, and, when you prove it is systemic, and it's being done like we are actually now seeing in Kenya, for a long period of time and all that, violates international human rights law. And especially, crimes that we can actually say are crimes against humanity. And you know what enforced disappearance does to individuals. One, looking at security and dignity of the person, looking at, a person, being, violated in a way that they can even face torture because they are being held at places that are not documented. We are talking about the right to humane condition of detention. You had two of the people who were abducted from Kitengela and kept for almost 2 months and would only be fed once in a week.
Yeah,
we are talking about right to a legal representation, because you are detained somewhere in some house, I don't know where, wherever, in some forest, wherever it is. You cannot be presented to court. You are talking about right to fair trial, talking about right to family life. For individuals, people, their mothers, their fathers were even crying because their children are actually held in places they do not know. You're talking about the right, to life, because some of these people end up dead. And we have seen situations whereby before some people have ended up in, River Yala or dead in the recent past. I think in the last 2 weeks we've seen, people who have actually resurfaced and we've been given narratives that, they were drowned, then they were hit by a vehicle.
As we take a break, yes.
So this is really worrying. And I think something that, investigations, impartial, independent, investigations must be done to actually uncover everything. Independent
investigations, that begs the question, the position of IPOA. We'll come back to that shortly. But somebody once said, injustice everywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. But that doesn't mean I take any of those sides. I wait to hear from you shortly. We take a very short break. We'll be back with this same panel. Don't go too far away.